My name is Yoav, and I'm the Director of Professional Services in GreenSQL. Just to make sure if you can hear me, I'll appreciate if anyone can just send me anything on the chat just so I'll know that someone is listening and you can hear me well. Okay, thanks Roger and Sarah, appreciate it. All right, so again, thank you for joining this webinar. We're going to talk about the GreenSQL solution. I'm going to do a product demonstration. I will show you all our capabilities. I'll start with security, auditing, and masking, everything that is related to compliance. I will also, during the demo, I will show some examples. I will do it using SQL Server Management Studio, but as you know, you can also use it on MySQL. Okay. So a few words about the company. The company mission is to provide a product that will fulfill an unmet need for database security. One of our main targets was to create a product that will be easy to use, intuitive. We putting a lot of efforts to make sure that our product, to keep it simple and still give you the best security we can. Few words about the company. We started as an open source project in early 2006, but after 3 years we become commercial and we are now serving customers from all over the world. Just recently, last year, we named by Gartner as a cool vendor in security and included in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for data masking. On the bottom of the screen, you can see a few of our venture capitals backing us financially. Here's a list of our customers, and you can see it's from different verticals, like governments. You can see Wyoming, Jefferson County, and also the finance. We have some banks, some NetPay, credit card banks, also healthcare. In the middle you can see the gaming, 888 or Random Logic, which is a big company, gambling company, gaming company, like EA Games, PopCap, Scientific Games, ZeniMax, and also technology. I guess the SanDisk is the most familiar company that you can find in the list, but also Edgecast and PBHS, also familiar. So in many environments and many verticals, there are many different regulations. And since we are a database security solution, we cover most of the things related to databases, and I'll cover them all shortly. Few words about the main concerns. And by the way, sorry for not mentioning, in the end of the session, we'll have, I'll leave lots of time for questions. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to write them, and in the end of the session, I will reply to all of your questions. So a few words about customers' concern. As you know, there are lots of databases spread around the company. It can be production databases, testing databases, staging databases, and also every developer, DBA, QA person can have his own private environment for his own testing, for his own working lab, and those environments can contain sensitive information. So how can we make sure that our production database won't be exposed to unprivileged users or to unauthorized users? So first of all, let's see who's accessing this information. And the first is automated connections. It can be applications, it can be ETLs, it can be backup, it can be reporting services, and also user connection that can come through the application. It can be administrators, it can be casual users. The most interesting thing here is that we know who is the user, but we don't know what data he can be exposed to, because the application user in most cases has high privileges, because the administrator of the application and an anonymous user of the application, eventually when they connect to the database, they are doing that with the same database user. So this is something that we are familiar with, and this is a concern that we hear lots of time from our customers, and we have a solution for that, because actually just by doing a separation, and sometimes it's hard to do it on the application side because not always the application is yours. Sometimes it can be a black box for you and you can't really make changes on that side. But what you can do is change it on the database side. So what we can do is we can make sure that the applications won't be able to touch or see data that is not related to this specific application. For example, if I have a Microsoft SQL Server instance that contains several schemas, several databases, and the application uses only one database, just by denying access to all other databases, I just increased the security by 70 to 80%. Also, if I will block any administrative command, I'm increasing the security higher, because there's no reason that the application will run a backup or will create a new user, a new database user, or will change the privileges. I'm sure that you agree with me on that, and this is something that we can do pretty much out of the box, and I'll show it to you in a few seconds. And as you know, it's not getting any better. There are lots of examples for hacking. This slide, the last breach that you can see here was in January 2014, but since then we can add a few more, and during our next presentation you will see the list, and probably you'll see every month there's at least one or two big breach. Few words about compliance. There are many regulations. You can start with HIPAA, with SOX, with PCI. Each one of them have their own requests, regulations, standards, and eventually you can find lots of things about the database side. Now, they focus on who can access the database, what he can see on the database, what level of access he would like to provide. Those things we cover end to end, and we have documents in our website that will help you with any regulation that you have to comply with. We can show you on what requirements we can help you with, and we can escort you during this compliance process. So what we offer three main features. The first one is database security. The second is database activity monitoring, or as people call it, auditing. And the third is dynamic data masking. We'll talk about each one separately, and I'll demonstrate each one of them separately. I'll start with, first of all, how it works. GreenSQL works as a reverse proxy. Means that all traffic is going through the GreenSQL application to the database server and then doing the same way back. One of the main advantages of us working as a reverse proxy means that we can, first of all, protect more than one database in one GreenSQL instance. Second is you can decide what application or users will go through the GreenSQL proxy. We don't enforce everything to go through our proxy. we can install GreenSQL basically everywhere, but our best practice is to install it on a dedicated server. It can be a physical or virtual, but as I mentioned, you can secure more than one database. You can secure multiple database servers when you install it on a dedicated server, and also you'll get best performance. I'll start with database security. One of our main features. It includes three modules inside. The first one is SQL injection. We have the ability to stop and detect SQL injection attempts using two mechanisms. The first one is a heuristic engine, and the second is a bank of known signature that we update all the time with our research team. Second is database firewall, and it pretty much connects to the SQL injection because you can put the system on a learning mode. Means that we can learn all the traffic coming from trusted sources. It can be the QA department, or it can be application running in test mode, staging mode, when you know that there are no attacks coming on this environment. And once we decide that we record or learned all the traffic from this application, we can close the learning mode process and decide that everything that was learned so far will be allowed to all the users that will start using or start working through the GreenSQL from this moment. Or in other words, whitelist. So if we put the system on SQL injection mode detection, it means that every time it will detect a SQL injection attempt, you will get an alert. You can put the system on two modes, and let me open the GreenSQL for a second. So here you can see the GreenSQL, so I'll just jump to security. Sorry. And let me open one rule. So if I will go now and create a SQL injection rule, which is just a one checkbox, I can decide if I want this SQL injection rule to be active or passive, IPS or IDS. If it will be in IPS, means active protection, the action will be blocked, means that every SQL injection attempt will be immediately blocked. If I'll change it to monitoring or IDS, you can see that the action has been replaced and now it's allowed. Means that now everything will be allowed, and I can put it on, I can enable the logging, put it in intrusion events, and then all SQL injection attempts will be logged. I can also enable the SMTP, so I will get email alerts, and I can also connect it to a syslog server, so everything will be sent to your syslog server. I can monitor specific sources, specific source IPs. I can create a group of IPs. As you can see here on the left side, there are source IPs, database user, application names, and also schedule if I want to create a specific time frame. Now you can create a specific IP address, a group of IPs, and also a range of IPs. You can also create a single database user or a group of database users. Same for applications. So this is about the security database firewall learning mode. Besides creating a whitelist, you can also create a blacklist. Means that if you have a sensitive report or sensitive information stored in your database in a specific table, or by executing a specific store procedure, what we usually recommend is to put the system on learning mode, learn the specific command from your application, or if you're afraid, from your DBAs, developers, QA, who's got administrative access to the database. You can make sure when you can use regular expression or just type the queries. You can just decide that anyone who's trying to access a specific table, it can be a specific user Or I can create a rule that will allow the access only to one user and then block the access to all the others. But you can decide, beside of that, as you can see in the screenshot attached here, if I will select a specific table and I'll set the action to allow, I can also decide what will be allowed. It can be a specific only to view the data, means that they won't be able to modify, delete, or run any administrative command on that. And as I mentioned in the customer concern slide, administrative access shouldn't be allowed to actually most of the users. So if one of your developers, or more than that, the application, need to access a table with sensitive information, you can make sure that an administrative command won't be executed on this table. Well, this is also part of the separation of duties, when you can decide set of rules for specific source IP or user or application, what level of access it will have to a specific store procedure or a specific table. We can also create it for a whitelist or a blacklist, and also for specific database. So if you have an application that is using one database and this instance contains more than one database, you can limit this application to access only this specific database, even though the database user can allow the access to all other users. Sorry, to all other databases. This is an example of a database security traffic event where you can see what was the action, what rule caused this traffic log. You can see the pattern of the query, and of course some session details. So you can see the log on and the log off time of the user, the database he tried to access, he did access, the username, and of course some client and server information, where you can see the host name, the IP address, the application I used, etc. So this is about the security, and before we jump to the next module, I would like to show you an example. So let me open a management studio for that. So I created an instance. I configured an instance in the system, and for that we have a wizard that will guide you through, where you just have to select the connection name, which is just a logic name for you. So I call it SQL Server, and then you can choose if it's a SQL Server or MySQL. You can put the host IP, the host or IP. In my case, it's localhost. And then you can choose if you want to use the instance name or the port number. Then I have to put a username and password for the login. This is crucial for the initialization process. These are the proxy details, but you can also change it and modify. These are the defaults, but you can play with it. Of course, check the connection and see that everything is okay. In that case, I didn't enter any username and password. But if I go back, I already configured the proxy, which is listening on port 1434. But this is something that you can play with. Usually, when you install GreenSQL, our best practice is a dedicated server, and then most of the ports will be available. In that case, GreenSQL here is installed on the same server with the database server. So 1433, the default port of the SQL Server, is taken. So I can use any other port, and I'll use 1439, for example. And if I'll go back to security, and before I do that, let me just drag the screen of the SQL Server Management Studio and create a new connection. So I will connect, this is my IP address, and I will log in as an SA. On port 1439, which is my proxy, and wrong password. There you go. So now I'm logged into my SQL server through the GreenSQL proxy, and I'll wait so you guys will see the screen also. I don't know why the GoToMeeting is frozen. I think you should be able to see it now. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm inside the database server through the GreenSQL proxy, and as you can see, I can browse inside my database, go to all the instances. Everything will work the same as you did before working through the GreenSQL. And if I want to create a rule for a specific table, let's say that I have a human resources employee, and I call it a sensitive table because it contains sensitive information. So if I'll run a query, I'll run a query on this table, and okay, now I got the results. So let's say that this table is sensitive. I can go back to the GreenSQL and I can create a rule. This one is the basic rule, which is basically any allow any traffic from any sources to go through. But I want to add another layer and say that anyone who will try to access the Adventure Work database, and I'll select a specific table. Now I'll have a crawler to the database. I'll go to human resources and I'll select employee. And I'll just click on update. Now I have to choose what will be the action. And as I told you, I want to block the access to this table. Anyone who will try to access to this table, I want to block from any source, any database user, or any application. And I can also set what will be the blocking action. I can return an empty result set, I can close the SQL connection, or generate a SQL error. Let's say that I will generate a SQL error and also send a log for that. So I created a rule. Now I have to make sure that I put it on the top. So now my policy says that the first rule, it's a top-down, means that the first rule will say anyone who's trying to access to this database and to this specific resource, which is AdventureWorks Human Resources Employee, will be blocked. All other commands will be allowed. So if I will go now back to the Management Studio, and I will run the same select statement, I will get access denied. But if I will change it, and instead of going to employee, I will go to shift, which is a different table, I will get everything. So this is if you're working with database administrators or developers that you know the tables, you're familiar with the database. But what if you're not? It's also possible, as I mentioned earlier, you can use the learning mode. And the learning mode is based on the query groups, when you can create a query group and learn all the traffic coming from your trusted sources. I already did it before, and I put all the traffic I learned from one source to this specific query group. So you can see all the traffic that I learned. which is just a simple connection to the database. So if I will go back to my policy and I can change this rule to a query group rule, I can choose this whitelist, the default allowed MS SQL query group, or I can give it any name. You can give any name that you want for this query group and decide that this action will be blocked for, I don't know, let's say for DBA number 2. And I want to close the connection every time we'll try to access. So this is how it works in the security part. I'll go back to the presentation, and if you guys have any further questions about the security, as I mentioned, don't forget you'll have time for questions in the end of the session. Okay. Next module is database activity monitoring or auditing. This feature is very important. We hear that a lot from our prospects and customers. Anyone who have to meet with specific regulation compliance, auditing is a big part of it. When you have to track any changes in your database, you have to know who did what on your database, and this feature can help you to do it. So what we do, we can audit any data access, where you can even set it on a column level, and you can also do it on a table level, and then you can decide what will be audited. Only the view commands, modifications, delete, or everything. But we can also audit administrative commands. Means that if anyone would try to change user privileges, will run a backup, will try to encrypt the database, things like that will be fully audited, so you'll know who did it, from where, and what user he used, and everything else will be available for you. We also have a cool feature inside called advanced auditing, advanced activity monitoring, that will show you what was the data before and after of every modification of sensitive information. So once you decide that the specific column or several columns are sensitive, you just have to enable the advanced activity monitoring, and then they will be fully audited. Means that, like in this example, you can see this was the query that was executed, and you can see how many rows has been affected by this query, and you can also see the modified object. So you can see that for this column, this was the previous data, and this is the current data. Now, this is one of the top demands, requests of every regulation. Just to show you how it works and how easy it is to configure an auditing rule, I'll go to monitoring, and inside the monitoring you will see the policy. So the policy is pretty much familiar to the security. You have to decide the activity monitoring type. You have the administrative auditing. So if I will select a specific database, I can either go deeper with the resolution and decide, of course, what sources I want to audit, or database users or application, and also what type of administrative commands I would like to audit. Is it backup and restore? Is it everything related to servers communication, data type, privileges, schema changes, or all groups? And then I can also enable the advanced activity monitoring. Another thing that is related to compliance is login events. I can decide that every login event will be audited, but I can also audit separately each one of them. Success logins, fail logins, logout, database changes, things like that also exist in different regulations and compliance. and you can find them here in our product. Data access is also separated. You can set up auditing rules for tables, or as I mentioned, columns, but also for store procedures. You can select a specific database, and you can set an auditing rule for all store procedures, or you can just get a list of all store procedures available on every schema. For any direct access to the database, we have an option to install an agent on the database server itself. So anyone who will try to connect the database not through the GreenSQL proxy, he will be fully audited by the agent, and the agent sending back all his events to the GreenSQL, so you can see everything in one place. Usually, customers want to export all the audit information to an external database, which is a feature that we have. We can export all our auditing events, security events, masking events to an external SQL server or MySQL. So we just dump everything to this server, and you can do everything you want with this information. We can also send everything to a syslog server, so you can see it in real time. So this is about the auditing. I'll move to the next feature, which is masking. Dynamic data masking is a very unique feature, helpful for compliance. It provides you the option to hide sensitive data from untrusted sources. It can be credit cards, medical information, everything which is sensitive for you can be protected. But the most important thing to understand here, that we do not change the data stored in the database. Means that there's no need to change anything on the database level or the application level. So, like in this example, if I will run this command, let me show you just on the product itself. If I will go to masking, I already have two rules here. Let me remove them. If I will open the Management Studio now, I'll choose an interesting table. It will be sales, credit card. So if I will query this table, you can see the credit card number. Now let's say that I don't want anyone to see the credit card number, not even the system administrator. It can be a DBA that I don't want him to be, or PCI won't let him to access this card number. So I can go to the GreenSQL, create a new rule, select this database, and then select the specific table and column. So it was sales, credit card, and now I'll go to card number. Once I picked the column that I want, I now have to choose the behavior. So I can select, we have about 15, 16 different masking functions. We have a specific function for credit cards that will mask all the digits except the last four. But you can also use any other function if you want to use your own function. We also can use one of your own. It's very easy to load it and use it here in our management. So I'll choose credit card masking, and I want to replace it by access. So let's say that I want to do that just for the SA user. Oh, you know what? Let's do it for the test user. So now there's a new rule. If I'll go back to the Management Studio and just to verify I'm connected as an SA user. So if I will run this command, I will see the real data. But if I will log in, this time with the a different user. That will be the test user. And I would like to query the database. I'll just copy and paste the query. I can see all the information in this table except the card number. But as you can see, this is the masking function I chose. So I can see only the last 4 digits. But meanwhile, the system administrator can still see the information because we didn't change it. This is why it's a dynamic data masking. As you saw, to use the dynamic data masking, you can create rules in seconds. It took me, something like 5 to 10 seconds to create a rule and check it. And I can create a masking rule for specific source IP, specific database user, or a group of users. So even if your application run a select star from a specific table that contains sensitive information, and it bothers you that sensitive information being exposed, even though it shouldn't be exposed because this is how the application works, so you can hide it from your users and mask it using our dynamic data masking. You can see all of the events that were masked, like the last one that I just showed you. So you can see what was the query, what was the affected columns, what rule affected this event, and of course session details. So this is the log on time. I'm still logged in. This is why there's no log off. You can see the IP addresses, which is my IP, and the server information, of course, and the user I used for this connection. Okay. So this was pretty much it. We covered all our capabilities. Just to summarize everything, we can prevent unauthorized access to your database and any SQL injection protection. We can monitor and audit any database activity, from data access to administrative access to login events, and hide your sensitive information. So the combination of all these capabilities will help you to comply your regulation. And of course, I mean, the next step is usually, the next step is usually you can schedule a one-on-one session with one of our engineers. You can send an email to, you can send it to me. I will share my email later, or you can contact us through our website, and one of our sales representative will contact you and schedule a session. And that's it. We can go to a POC. You can download our product from the website and evaluate it. I strongly recommend the assistance of our pre-sale team. I would also like to mention that we have a very strong post-sale team that will escort you during the implementation. So all our best practices, we will share them with you. So the implementation, actually the average implementation takes something from 20 minutes to 3-4 hours. And we're pretty much proud of that. The installation is very fast. We can install the GreenSQL on Windows or Linux. It doesn't matter for us. We also have a virtual appliance. It makes it even easier. So this is about it. As I promised, there's now enough time for questions. So these are the next steps. You can schedule a one-on-one meeting with one of our engineers. You can send me an email or request a demo. You can send an email to sales@greensql.com or just visit our website and you'll find request a demo button and leave your details over there. So I'll wait for your questions. Okay, guys, I'm getting your questions. 1 second. All right. I'll start with a question I got from Mark. He asked if we have data masking specific presentation. Well, the answer is yes. I think you can find it, and let me check it as we speak. I'll check it. I think we already did a webinar about masking, so maybe you can listen to it. About a presentation, there is a presentation, and just shoot me an email right after the session, or I'll make sure that one of our sales representatives will contact you and provide you the presentation. Sure, Mark, we will send it to you, no problem. I got a question from Agron asking, has the agent has the same capabilities as the proxy? Well, no, it doesn't have the same capabilities. It just have the same auditing capabilities and even more than the proxy's capabilities. But the agent won't be able to, at the moment, won't be able to do any security enforcement or masking enforcement. Does it answer your question, Agron? Okay, great. I'll go to the next question. One second, please. Oh, I got a question from Kumbu, and he's asking if GreenSQL is a multi-tenant solution. Well, yes, you can install one GreenSQL instance on a server, but you can actually, one GreenSQL instance can run several proxies. So you can create several proxies to listen on different ports and to protect several database servers. Did it answer your question? Right, guys, right now I have no questions in my queue, so I'm still here. If you have any other question, don't be shy. Okay, I got another question from, oh, Alete Kunbo. Are there limitations to which databases it can protect? Well, at the moment we protect MySQL and SQL Server. We are working hard on Oracle, so it will be ready till the end of the year, till 2014. And also, we supported Postgres, and now we're not officially supporting it, but this is something that also in our roadmap. So Oracle and Postgres will be supported in the next year, 2 years. I got another question from Agron asking how much gigabyte of log data can be stored, or is there no limit? Well, GreenSQL is a software, so it can be installed on your server, and it depends how many storage you have. So basically, the question how much, I can answer that it really depends on how many resources you will allocate to the GreenSQL. We strongly recommend not to store everything on the GreenSQL box. We usually recommend to export all the log data to an external database. It can be SQL Server or MySQL, and then I guess that your company do backup a monthly or weekly or daily backup, so it will be part of it. Agron is asking if we can still report on the exported data. Yes, all the data is being stored inside the GreenSQL. It's just being here you can set up a rotation inside the GreenSQL. You can set up a rotation, so you will have archives, and you can set up what will be the archive rotation settings, what will be the file size, how many log files you wanna keep. If you want to do a scheduled rotation, you can also do that. And as long as the information exists and was not rotated, you can report on it. If you export the data to your database, so yes, you can run the reports on all the data that's been exported. Once it's in your hands and on your database, you're the boss. Okay, guys, so if there's no other questions, as I mentioned, feel free to contact me personally for to schedule a one-on-one meeting, or go to our website and request a demo. You can also send an email to sales@greensql.com, and our sales team members will be more than happy to help you. That's it. Thank you for joining this presentation. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.